Picture this. You are standing in a parking lot. Someone has just been hurt. The blood is coming fast, faster than you expected. You call 911. The dispatcher picks up and starts asking questions. The clock is already running. You have skills or you do not. And right now, in this moment, that is the only thing that matters. This video is about that gap. The gap between when something goes wrong and when the ambulance actually pulls up. It is the most dangerous window in emergency medicine, and almost nobody is trained to survive it. Let's talk about the real numbers, because most people have a completely wrong idea of how fast help arrives. In urban areas, the average EMS response time is around 7 minutes. That sounds fast until you understand what 7 minutes actually means when someone is bleeding out on the floor next to you. But that is the average. The National Fire Protection Association standard, NFPA 1710, calls for a 4-minute response for life-threatening calls. Most urban departments do not meet that standard consistently. Traffic, call volume, and crew availability all push that number higher. On a busy Friday night in a dense city, 7 minutes becomes 10, 10 becomes 14. Now take that scenario outside the city. In rural areas, the average response time is 14 minutes or more. Nearly 1 in 10 rural patients waits almost 30 minutes for an ambulance. That is not a worst-case scenario pulled from a disaster film. That is documented data from the National EMS Information System. The reasons are straightforward. Fewer stations, longer distances, volunteer crews that have to drive to the station before they can even leave. A cardiac arrest in a rural county is a fundamentally different emergency than the same cardiac arrest 20 miles away in a suburb. And here is the thing nobody tells you. These response times are not getting better. They are getting worse. EMS agencies across the country are dealing with record call volumes, up significantly since the pandemic. Staffing shortages have hit the field hard. Many departments are running with fewer rigs on the street than they had 5 years ago. The math is simple, and it is brutal. More calls, fewer crews, longer distances. The gap is widening. So the question is not whether you should rely on EMS. EMS professionals are skilled, they are dedicated, and when they arrive, they can do things you cannot. The question is what happens in the minutes before they get there, because that window belongs to you. Here is the part most people never learn in a standard first aid class. Let's talk about how fast different injuries actually kill. A severed or severely damaged artery, a femoral artery in the thigh, a brachial artery in the arm, can cause fatal blood loss in as little as 2 to 5 minutes, not 20 minutes, not 10 minutes, 2 to 5. You lose about 5 liters of blood in your entire body. A major arterial bleed can dump a liter per minute. Do that math. Internal bleeding is slower but just as lethal, and harder to identify. A ruptured spleen from a car accident, blunt abdominal trauma, or a bad fall can cause death within 30 to 60 minutes without intervention. By the time someone looks pale, confused, and their blood pressure is crashing, the internal damage has been building for a while. Cardiac arrest is its own clock entirely. The brain begins to sustain damage within 4 to 6 minutes without circulation. Every minute that passes without CPR or a defibrillator drops survival odds by roughly 7 to 10%. After 10 minutes of no intervention, survival rates become very low. A study by the University of Manchester, in partnership with the Red Cross, found that up to 60% of traumatic injury deaths may be preventable with basic first aid delivered before EMS arrives. 60%. That is not a marginal improvement. That is the majority of people who die from preventable injuries dying because nobody around them knew what to do. Not because the injury was unsurvivable. Because the response window was empty. Only about 40% of cardiac arrest victims receive bystander CPR before EMS arrives. That means 6 out of 10 people collapse and nobody does anything useful until the paramedics show up, often too late. You do not have to be a paramedic. You do not need a medical degree. You need about 3 skills and the willingness to use them. Skill 1. Direct pressure and wound packing. For any significant bleeding wound, your first move is direct pressure. Put your hands on the wound, ideally through a cloth or bandage, and press hard. Not gently, hard. Most people do not press hard enough. Use your body weight. Keep both hands stacked if you need to. For deep wounds, gunshots, stab wounds, or punctures, you need to pack the wound. That means taking gauze and physically pushing it into the wound cavity to create internal pressure. Combat gauze or regular rolled gauze both work. Push it in, keep going, and then apply pressure on top. This is not comfortable to do. Do it anyway. Hold pressure for a minimum of 3 minutes without lifting to check. Every time you lift to look, you are disrupting the clotting process. Do not peek. Hold and count. Skill 2. Tourniquet application. Tourniquets have saved more lives in the last 2 decades than almost any other single tool in emergency medicine. The data from combat medicine is definitive. A study published in the Journal of Trauma by Kragh and colleagues in 2009 found that tourniquet use before a patient went into shock had a survival rate of 90%. Without a tourniquet in those same cases, survival was near zero. For a life-threatening bleed on a limb, arm or leg, where direct pressure is not controlling the bleeding, you apply a tourniquet. The recommended tool is the CAT tourniquet, the Combat Application Tourniquet. It runs about $30 from a reputable source. It is small enough to go in a bag, a glove box, or a desk drawer. Application is straightforward. Place it 2 to 3 inches above the wound on the limb. Secure the strap. Tighten the windlass, that is the rod you twist, until the bleeding stops. Lock the windlass, note the time and do not remove it. Write the time on the patient's skin with a marker if you have one. The paramedics need to know when it went on. One important note: buy from a reputable source, North American Rescue, TACMed Solutions, or a verified distributor. Counterfeit CAT tourniquets exist and they fail when it matters. This is not the place to save $8 on Amazon. Skill 3. Hands-only CPR. If someone collapses, is unresponsive, and is not breathing normally, you start CPR. You do not wait. You do not hope someone else will. You start. The American Heart Association simplified this for bystanders. Call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of the chest. Aim for 100 to 120 compressions per minute, roughly the beat of Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees. That is not a joke. It is an actual teaching tool and it works. Push down about 2 inches. Let the chest fully rise between compressions. Do not stop until help arrives or the person shows clear signs of life. If there is an AED nearby, those yellow or green boxes you see on walls in airports, gyms, schools, and offices, get it. Turn it on. Follow the voice prompts exactly. AEDs are designed for untrained bystanders. They will tell you every step. They will not shock someone who does not need it. Know where your nearest AEDs are. There is a free app called PulsePoint that maps AED locations and can even alert trained responders when a cardiac arrest is reported nearby. Download it. It takes 2 minutes. Skill 4. Get trained for free. The Stop the Bleed program is a free, nationwide initiative that teaches direct pressure, wound packing, and tourniquet application in about 2 hours. There are thousands of instructors across the country. Hospitals, schools, fire departments, and community centers host these courses regularly. Go to stopthebleed.org. Enter your zip code. There is very likely a class within driving distance of where you are sitting right now. Take it. Bring someone with you. This is not a survival cult thing. This is basic adult competency in the 21st century. The same way you know to wear a seatbelt or get out of a burning building. Skill 5. Build a basic trauma kit. You can put together a capable individual first aid kit, an IFAK, for $50 to $75. The core items: 1 CAT tourniquet, 2 to 3 rolls of compressed gauze, 1 pack of hemostatic gauze like QuikClot or Celix, a pair of nitrile gloves, and a trauma dressing or Israeli bandage. That is the foundation. Add a chest seal if you want to cover penetrating chest wounds, and a pair of trauma shears for cutting clothing away from a wound. The whole kit fits in a pouch the size of a large paperback book. Keep one in your car. Keep one at home. FlintReady.com has a full gear guide with sourcing recommendations and a printable checklist so you can build yours without guessing. The skills matter more than the gear. But the gear matters too. Having a tourniquet in the car you can actually reach is not a paranoid thing. It is the same logic as keeping a spare tire. Here's what happens when people are prepared. At the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013, 27 lives were saved that day. Not by paramedics who had not yet arrived, by bystanders. People who used belts, clothing, and the handful who had actual tourniquets to control massive limb bleeding in the minutes before EMS could get through the crowd. Medical professionals who analyzed that event noted that the extremely low fatality count, given the severity of the blast injuries, was largely attributable to the immediate bystander response and the high concentration of medical personnel in the area. But many of those who acted were not doctors. They were people who knew what to do and did it without hesitating. That is the multiplier effect. When you learn these skills, you do not just make yourself safer. You make every person near you safer. Your family, your coworkers, the person at the next table in a restaurant, the stranger in the parking lot, the kid at the baseball game. You become a resource in the gap. You become the difference between a 7-minute window of nothing and a 7-minute window where something useful is happening. The data is clear. The University of Manchester and Red Cross research is not an outlier. Bystander intervention works. It saves lives at a rate that should make this knowledge mandatory, but right now it is not. Right now it is a choice. Here's what I want you to do after this video. 1. Go to stopthebleed.org and find a class near you. 2. Order a cat tourniquet from a verified source. North American Rescue is the gold standard. 3. Download the PulsePoint app and know where your nearest AED is. That is it. 3 things. Less than an hour of your time and about $30 in gear. If you want the full trauma kit gear list, the printable checklist and links to everything mentioned in this video, they are all on FlintReady.com. We built that site specifically so you do not have to piece this together from 40 different sources. If this video was useful, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us reach more people who need to hear this. We cover preparedness topics the way they should be covered, based on actual data, real skills, and gear that works. No fear-mongering, no doomsday theatrics, just the information you need to be the most capable person in the room when something goes wrong. The clock is always running. The only question is whether you are ready when it starts. Stay prepared. FlintReady.com